I'm your host, Barbara Bruce, and thank you for joining us this afternoon. I bring you Sheri McGuinn. I actually had the great pleasure of interviewing you before when you were talking about running away, but you've got something fantastic going on now, don't you?
I've got a whole pile of fantastic things going on right now. My son took a look at my to-do list and said, "Oh, I'm sorry."
That's amazing because those to-do lists just get bigger and bigger and bigger. We hear about writer's block.
You know, I've never had a problem with writer's block because I don't try to set up a specific time that I write every single day. I'm usually working on several different projects, and to me, it's a gift when I get a chance to sit down and write. When I said I have a terrible to-do list, most of it is all about marketing, because when you self-publish, you have to do all your own marketing. And what I have been hearing, one of the things I do is I go to conferences and I meet people that are writers with traditional companies, and I also meet agents, and I have talked with the young adult editor from Doubleday. He told me he didn't want to publish Running Away because it had an adult voice and children don't read adult voices. He will eventually find out he was wrong. But I lost my train of thought. Oh no, does that happen to you on radio?
No, it never happens. And and if you believe that, I'm going to sell you some oceanfront property right over here at Rainbow Lake.
Yeah.
You were actually saying that you never have writer's block.
Right, because I have so many things to do. And the marketing, what I have found out is that when you publish with a traditional company, they will, if you get a good contract, they'll push your book for 2 or 3 months, and then they're done, and it's up to the author anyway. So I'm torn. There's part of me that wants to continue self-publishing because you have control over what your cover looks like. You have control over whether or not things get edited a particular way. But on the other hand, that traditional publisher makes it so much easier. One of the things that helps sell books, I have found out, I can't get my book into the Hawaiian libraries because it has not been reviewed by the right one of 4 publications. And now my new novel, Michael Dolan McCarthy, has already made it to the to the quarterfinals of the Amazon Breakout Novel Awards. And part of making it to the quarterfinals, that means that it's one of approximately 500 books that they chose out of 10,000 entries to get to the quarterfinals based on the pitch and the excerpt, the little beginning part. And every one of those 500 is getting a professional review of the complete manuscript by Publishers Weekly, which is one of the biggies that the libraries will pay attention to.
Running Away.
2008 International Self-Published Book Awards, and it was one of 4 or 5 books mentioned for the middle grade young adult class. And that was exciting, and I knew about that months ago. It just got published in the March-April issue. But what really thrilled me to my toes was the commentary that I just got last week, and that was all glowing talk about how wonderful the 2 voices were and how wonderful it was that the daughter and the mother got to know each other partially by reading each other's diaries. They understood what I was doing.
Let's talk a little bit about you, because there are people out there that have always had a dream in their heart for writing. Did you always have that dream?
It was never a dream. It's just something I do. When I was in elementary school, I was in 5th grade. I remember the teacher would assign 100-word stories or essays, and to entertain myself, I would write the entire thing in one grammatically correct. And I was fortunate that I had a teacher who enjoyed that and would check it very carefully to see if I was grammatically correct and give me an A+ if it was, which it usually was. And then she also got me to help write the school, our play in our elementary school. Every year, every class put on a play, and I helped write it in 5th grade and starred as Walter Mitty's mother. And in 6th grade, I helped rewrite Over the Rainbow and played one of the witches. And then in junior high, I was on the paper, and then I moved to a small town. I got drafted as the editor of the paper when the teacher was going out on leave. I just always have written well because I started young, and my mother always was a tough editor before I ever got my work off to school. So it's just something that I have always done. It's only in the last 2 or 3 years I've gotten professional about it. I had sent a few things off now and then, and I even went to a conference in New York City back in 1982 when I wrote my first book, which is still in a box. I had a top agent from the city ask for the whole manuscript, and he sent it back and said, "I like your writing, but this book has too many characters." Well, I went and put it in a box and never tried again. And after I finished running away and published it, I went back and I looked at that, and he was absolutely right. I was trying to tell 6 different stories in one, and I should have paid attention, So a lot of it's just honing your craft first. There are a lot of self-published novels out there that are not well edited, and you do want to make sure it's well edited. If you can't do it yourself, get somebody else to do it for you. But once you've honed your craft, you still have to have that persistence and confidence. And frankly, I never had that until the last couple of years. And I love writing, but all those years working with kids that were at risk, I was seeing kids going through the same problems with the same patterns over and over. And I really enjoy writing a story and having worked with them and knowing that those same teens are very often poor readers or reluctant readers. So my goal is to give them a fast-paced suspense story that they enjoy for the story, and yet at the same time, if they're in some kind of crisis themselves, hope that the story will give them hope, the skills and confidence they need to survive their own crisis and move on ahead to a better kind of life. It's so wonderful to be here. And you were talking about the characters. They end up writing the stories for me once I get a sense of who they are, and I suddenly find out things about them I had no clue about when I started.
How amazing. Well, I can't wait to watch it unfold and hear about your screenplay. Sheri McGuinn, bless you. We wish you the best of luck.
And thank you all for all of your support and help.
I've asked Sheri if she will hang around a little bit because we're going to talk about someone else's book. Sheri, can you help me out with that?
Yes. This is The Forresters Log by Mary Stuever. It's been published by the University of New Mexico Press, and Mary has just started a website called I think it's The Forresters Log. It's either that or forresterslog.com. Mary Stuever, a lot of people out there are going to know because she came up here during the
Rodeo-Chedeski fire.
The Rodeo-Chedeski fire, and she was the information officer. She's the one that had to deal with all those camera trucks and stuff. And she stayed for what was supposed to be a 3-year job with the Burn Area Emergency Restoration, the Bear Project, down on the reservation. She ended up here for 5 years and still feels that the job has a lot more to be done. There's still people being flooded out of their homes every year. 5 and more years later, there's still a lot of devastation because of what happened with the fire. But in this book, it is a collection. She used to do for the last 20 years, a monthly log. In fact, I think she's still doing it. And in that log, she would talk about the things she was doing and stuff like that. Well, she took this book, she took all of her articles, and she selected the best ones. And the book is divided into 3 sections. The first one is about fire. And she is a strong advocate for managing the forests, and that includes doing controlled burns and logging in order to keep a healthy forest so you don't get 500 million acres or 500,000 acres burning at one time. The second one is about forestry because she has worked all of her life as a forester and as I lost the word again. Anyway, but
As a public information officer?
Well, actually, no. She has worked as a firefighter. She did that through college, and one of the stories in here is about her favorite pair of fire boots getting stolen when she lived down in White River for 5 years. She'd lost several other things, but the fire boots really broke her heart because they were really special ones. And she has a chapter with many of these essays, basically, about the burn area restoration and trying to make the recovery and all the kinds of things that they were doing, which would be helpful for anybody who has had a burn on their property that they could do in a small scale. She also, the part that I have gotten to is environmental education, and she's been very active in that. And until I started reading this, had no clue how many wonderful things have been done in schools in the last 20 years with environmental education, and how they've had to go after grants and coordinate with other agencies and things, because she did all of that too. She only worked on the burn area restoration 5 years. She has done just about everything you could possibly imagine in the field of forestry. And when her children were little, she homeschooled and worked independently and took them along. And there's some interesting stories about things that happened there. And I haven't gotten to it yet, but her last chapter is on recreation in the forest.